Hey guys, it's Andrew from Global Associates. Today I'm going to be doing an introduction to NABERS. If you don't know what this is, this one's going to be for you. So, what is NABERS, or what's it stand for? Right, it's National Australian Built Environment Rating System. And what is it? So look, it's a performance-based rating tool that measures the environment performance, right, of buildings, tenancies, focusing primarily on four core values. They are energy efficiency, water usage, we have waste management, and indoor environmental quality. These are the four things that NABERS rates on. So really key things that we need to kind of address and focus on. But I guess I had this first question when I first thought about this, but why do we need another rating system when we've already got ones out there like LEED and BREEAM, WELL, Fit Building? There's a plethora of these different awarding bodies that, why do we need another one, right? And so why would we choose NABERS over another rating system? The first thing that strikes you, or should strike you, is it's 100% performance based, and this is different from what we see on the likes of BREEAM or LEED, because systems like LEED and BREEAM, they're more at the design stage, right? And they look at things like predictive usage, whereas NABERS, they focus on real consumption data, energy, water, waste, indoor environment. And so it's really the ratings are reflecting on actual outcomes and not just like kind of theoretical potential. It uses a straightforward 0 to 6-star rating. Quickly communicates exactly how your building is performing. With LEED and BREEAM, they use points, categories, levels, so things like certification levels, so silver, gold, and premium. And they're sometimes a little bit more complex to interpret in terms of how that building has performed. Now, a lot of this is obviously forward projecting, whereas with NABERS, it's real time, right, of continuously looking at how a building performs. If you look at a typical building, most buildings, they spend a lot of money at the capex stage up front, which is usually about 20% of a building's life cycle, with the other 80% being the operational ongoing costs, right? And where I think NABERS sets a standard apart is it's focusing on the longevity of a building. It's designed to encourage ongoing tracking and periodic reassessment. So this means that building owners and managers are incentivized to keep monitoring, tweaking, and innovating with improvements all the time. While LEED and BREEAM do encourage these improvements, of course, they often emphasize at the initial design stage, whereas NABERS is about staying on top, right? Real world performance. NABERS offers specialized tools. So for this, where NABERS is different is, again, BREEAM and LEED, they're normally an overarching standard that applies across any building, whereas with LEED, it's individualized per type of sector. So things like offices, hotels, shopping centers, data centers, apartments, etc., they're all tailored specifically for those types of buildings. So it's really niche and really powerful for how that looks. With LEED and BREEAM, they also have a wide scope, right? But with NABERS, it's sector specific, as I've just mentioned. For zeroing in on kind of operational nuances like water in hotels or real-time energy demands in data centers. It's obviously providing a much more granular feedback on how to improve. Did you know, however, so buildings, right, kind of big picture thinking here, buildings consume 40% of the world's energy, right? So if you take the total amount of energy across the world, 40% of that is purely from buildings, and it kind of contributes to 30% of the global carbon emissions. So as obvious as it sounds, small tweaks, even at a building by building scale, when scaled across states, has a massive impact. And it's about shifting priorities, right? So tenants, employees, investors, they're now demanding transparency in buildings and building operations, energy usage, air quality, occupant comfort. It's always a big driver for people, specifically about acquisition and making sure you're keeping all your talent. And the key takeaways is, look, sustainability is table stakes, right? So to stand out, you must keep improving your buildings as a top tier performance. So let's meet NABERS, right? Your building performance scorecards. So we can think of NABERS like a nutritional label, right, on a tin of beans or whatever it would be. You're telling you them key stats for what you can expect in terms of nutrition, from a product. Well, it's the same for buildings, right? But the awarding is based on energy, water, waste, and the environmental efficiency. And why is it essential? Well, we want actionable insights, right? So data-driven snapshots of building performance. We want to see how your building stacks up to your peers, right? Are you a gym? Are you a hotel? Are you a university? How do you stack up against others in that sector? And it promotes continuous improvement, monitor, measure, and raise your rating. And it's like wearing a Fitbit for your building. Once you measure it, you can manage it. A statement that we hear a lot in our sector. So NABERS has 4 core ratings, as we've mentioned before. Energy, right? So HVAC, lighting, access control, sensors, IoT, lighting, whatever type of system you have that has a digital fingerprint, we want to be able to bring that in specifically from an energy perspective. Then we move on to water. So coolant towers, restrooms, kitchens, grey water, anything where we can recycle water is obviously a good use case. So are you conserving or are you wasting on that water? And with waste, are you someone who's generally not too concerned with waste and sending it to landfill, or are you a recycling champion? And within NABERS, there's ways in which that needs to be tracked to make sure that you are on target. And then lastly, indoor environment, occupational health, right? Comfort, air quality, temperature, lighting, acoustics, occupancy detection. All of these things are really, really important for monitoring and managing indoor environment. And again, for your ratings, all of these 4 sectors here are the core principles that we need to adhere to. For obvious reasons, it's not just about improving cost. With all of these 4, it's enhancing the occupant satisfaction and well-being. So let's understand the ratings, right? So we start with 3 stars. That's typically perceived as an average building. 4 stars is perceived as good. 5 stars, excellent. And 6 stars is market leading. So that's what really, from an aspirational perspective, we can start to drive towards with these things. And just jumping from star 3 to 4 can boost by 10 to 15% in your bottom line for operational costs. Moving in then, so top benefits of high NABERS ratings. So as you're shifting through the gears with these star ratings, look, it's about improving, let's be honest, cost assumption, right? That's the most important thing people think about. And moving through the gears with the stars should really be aiming for 20-30% on energy bills as we're moving through those star ratings. High rating buildings, they attract the top tier tenants and they command the premium rents. And that's an obvious statement. Better the building portfolio, better the envelope, better the occupancy detection, better the energy efficiencies. You're going to be able to attract those top tiers. And then, of course, being able to retain your best workers and your best employees, right? Aligning with their values. I mean, forward projecting into the next generation. Energy, global warming, it's here, there, and everywhere. So a lot of that is kind of ingrained into that society now. So those values are obviously going to follow through with those. So those people are going to be wanting those kind of buildings. So for NABERS, it's embedding that as part of that kind of crucial step forward. And then, of course, staying ahead of regulations. As green laws are tightening, we're seeing these things coming in all the time. Just from a common sense perspective, having a strong NABERS rating future-proofs your property. It's not just a badge, right? It's a magnet, right? It's attracting those tenants, good return on investment, and retaining talent. But here's where global step in, right? We're an MSI provider, master systems integrator. They are people who can, from an IT perspective, from a systems architecture perspective, from a structured cabling perspective, from a systems integration perspective, tying all of these different complexities together in one unique platform, connecting those dots, obviously providing energy performance and measurement and monitoring as part of that. So for us, right, as an MSI, we can do all of that. We integrate everything, removing the silos and putting it all in one common data lake. And by tying in together systems, we're obviously providing instant data-driven insights. Big part of this is really being on front of what's going on at real time. We're moving towards now the point where we're getting down to the actual MCB level of granular data. So, we've got devices now that monitor a single MCB, single phase, 3-phase. So you know exactly what a specific asset is using. Could be a VRV, could be an air source heat pump, could be any asset that comes back to the boards. We can monitor at that level. Digital twin capability. So obviously being able to map out your building with a digital footprint of what's going on in that building as a digital representation, a digital twin. We provide that in line with our global EMS platform that provides a really complementary setup between those two elements: energy management and future ready, right? This platform is constantly, and the way in which we do things, whether that's legislatively driven, guidance, anything like that, where it's on, for us important, like this now, it's getting the information out there so that you guys are ready, just as much as we're ready as well, making sure that we're always on top of what we need as a company and as an industry to keep growing. And from an EMS standpoint, right, monitoring and targeting, it starts with the basics, making sure data's coming in, there's no gaps, the data quality is perfect, and we're able to understand and forward project what we expect that energy to be by creating things like MMV baselines, regression analysis, forward projecting, and then creating alerts based on what we know to be true in terms of energy efficiency for where we expect energy to be at. As we start to triage over that, we start to alert, we react, and we understand what's going on site, and then we start to kind of manipulate what we need to do to reduce them energy curves, or at least inform you as a client of what's going on. And then, you know, a lot of this, you don't need to be sitting in front of a PC, you know, dialing in, that's a really old word, but accessing the actual platform. Get this as a report, get it weekly, monthly, you know, understand what differences are happening at a report basis so that you don't have to keep reviewing or logging into systems. You know, you want the important stuff at your fingertips. That's what we provide. And with this data, you want to be able to then make informed decisions based upon what you're seeing, right? So having that data crystal clear, no full quality of what that data means, making sure everything's being set up correctly. Things like, you know, normalization of data, weather patterns, how is that influencing energy? All of that stuff needs to be important, because when we come to the decision making, you know, where do we need to spend our money? Is it improving our systems? Is it optimizing our sites? Is it investments in new assets of regenerative technologies, as an example? These are the things that it allows you to do because you've got that data. And then, as I mentioned before, utility forecasting, being able to take a set of data, using AI to understand and train on that algorithm to say, okay, based on these factors, weather, occupancy, consumption, building size, what can we expect our energy to look like over the next day, week, month, and then how do we move the needle to drift below that? That's where it becomes really powerful. But let's dive a little deeper into our platform, just as a quick kind of overshot. So this is a particular building. You can see here, because we benchmark against thousands of buildings across the globe, we have an understanding. This is a building, say, in Antwerp, right, which is a huge, big office building. For that type of dynamic of building, with the amount of energy it's using, the size of the building, the climate, the footfall, you know, what we should be seeing is an average of, you know, 1,000 kilowatts a year. The best building, sorry, that's 1 megawatt. The best building cluster is you know, half that, right? So the best building type that we see for this type of sector is a lot less, but this one's using orders of magnitude. It's nearly 3.5 megawatt hours. So there's a lot to kind of understand that this building is very inefficient. This provides us some sort of statistics to say, based on what we're seeing in the market, there's a 48% improvement on this building that can be done, which would equate to a, you know, 1.6 megawatt hour reduction. And we can see the evolution over time. If we take the industry standards, the lower them, you know, what we expect, if the average is what we're seeing in that kind of mid blue color, the better than the sector's average is the lower color. But look how often this is exceeding the sector's average. Really big alarm bells being raised that give us that information that we know something is off on this building. And there's some other key stats that are really powerful, right? So Monday is the most consumption for this particular building, and usually around 3 p.m. So just some real key data that you wouldn't typically see in a CSV file or any typical platform, what you want to drill into as a good starting point. Just as a very quick analysis, I've done lots of stuff on our platform that you can see on other social media channels, but let's step into the NABERS rating system a little bit more, right? So what would we do as an organization, right? The first thing we want to do on behalf of a client is an initial assessment. We then want to look at the quick wins how can we affect change really quickly? How can we use green kind of green funding, so the benefit that we've taken from the quick wins, and then use that for things more strategic upgrades and advanced technology. And then we want to measure, calibrate, and repeat, right? So they're the kind of 4 pillars that we want to do as part of an initial kind of 4-step approach. So first thing is we benchmark energy, water, and waste, and then we set a baseline for improvement. Second, talked about the quick wins, simple things like optimizing the HVAC. If there's LED retrofits that guarantee a really swift return, simple things like occupant behavior, human impact about how they operate within that building. Just purely picking the top priorities for that green funding to benefit for the next phase, which is then when we start overlaying a lot more technology, things like IoT sensors, monitoring things like when a door's open or closed. If someone's opening a window, we use camera technology. An example of this would be in a gym, for example, where we have a lot of different assets like running machines, bikes, etc., where a good proportion of them may not be in use, and we're using GDPR compliant camera technology above those things that allow us to use smart sockets to switch off those assets when we need to. That gets into the more kind of bespoke ideas around how we're managing and monitoring, as an example, but that's where we get to that kind of, after the low-hanging fruit, we really push the barriers a little bit more. And then, like I said before, it's then measure, calibrate, and repeat. And that's what NABERS is all about. It's ongoing, right? It's not just a simple thing that you do at the start of a construction period, but actually it's ongoing and it's continuous improvement. So what are some of the hurdles that we'll tend to find with this, and how can we help with our support? So data complexity, normally it's about so many different ways to get data, fiscal meter data as an example. How do we get data from waste? What about water? It always starts with data quality, and our approach, because we have so many different ways in which we can collect data, we unify that into a dashboard, whether that's fiscal, sub-meter, or even down to individual MCB level. We do all of that part for you so that no data slips through the cracks. What about financial constraints? Again, our approach is focusing on the quick ROI projects initially to refund the more higher engagement piece, which is really around once you've took that initial steps. We don't really want to be hitting the big stuff first. We want to focus on the stuff that's going to re-incentivize, looking at things like government incentives. Again, we can help with all of that kind of stuff. And then from a stakeholder buy-in perspective, that's usually, trying to get people on board with what you're doing. Eye-catching dashboards, real-time results, reports that tell you exactly what's going wrong, benefits to the owners, the tenants, and the employees. That gives real power. Some of the universities we deal with, we have dedicated academic dashboards that they use to purely about learning about energy. And it becomes a really kind of self-evolving platform that helps with stakeholder buy-in, right? And as I say, as an MSI, we have a lot of experience in this market, so lean on us, right? If you need some support to help through some of these barriers, we're here and able to help out with any of this kind of stuff, conversations wise. If you want to dedicate a one-on-one session, or you want some, presentation to your team, you just need to hit me up, and we're more than happy to kind of help out with that. So obviously, with so many different standards coming out, why NABERS and future proofing? Well, look, for us, we can always expect more stringent energy disclosure policies, but our platform will always have you ready for that compliance, right? Of course, from a global standards alignment, we can sync with BREEAM, we can sync with LEED, well, fit building, all of the kind of elements that we want to see also filter into how our platform is designed. Forecasting and optimization, this is the piece that we center on moreover, because this is how we look forward in terms of how we monitor energy, and then provide insights on how we can make sure that we're always below that forecast. These are things that we want to make sure we're always doing, because it's important. It's the stuff that tends to go out to kilter once you've installed the platform. People walk away. This is about continuous improvements. And again, just a catchy statement, but look, lead the charge with a building that's already meeting future standards. Don't just comply with tomorrow's leads, right? Be a game changer. And if you want to know more, as a few steps, book an assessment. We'll baseline your building's energy, water, waste, and indoor environment. We'll unify your building systems, right? We'll harness real-time data and again, remove inefficiencies. This is around that quick win piece to significantly look at how we can bolster the second phase or the third phase. And then we activate the EMS platform. We're then monitoring, we're controlling, and we're optimizing everything under one roof with actionable insights. So this is just about leveling up your score, getting a sense on where you are, and then what steps you can take to improve that to get up that rating ladder. And again, it's a journey, right? It's a transformational journey. I think a lot of these things get seen as another thing. But again, like I mentioned at the start of this, this is more about looking at how this differentiates from the likes of Lead and Briam. This is a continuous improvement, constantly looking at how you're performing to get better ratings. Better ratings mean better ROI. Better ratings mean better retention. Better ratings mean all of the kind of stuff that's going to benefit your building to attract that top talent. If you want to get hold of me, if you found this interesting or anything you want to comment on, please get in touch with me. My email address is amckenna@globalassociates.co.uk. This has been an introduction to NABERS. Thank you for spending the time and reviewing, and I will catch you guys in the next one.